France 24 debate. We're taking you from Sunday's Greek elections to a all-important EU summit that takes place in 10 days' time, one where they hope to come up with some kind of, quote, grand plan. With us to talk about it from Athens, François Picard of Athens News. Welcome back. Welcome back as well to Craig Kapidis, journalist and author of Mona Lisa's Pajamas. Harold Howe, who teaches at the University of Geneva and the Swiss Finance Institute. And Julia Cagé, part of a group of economists who signed a manifesto in favor of then-candidate François Hollande, now the French president. Thank you for being with us. We were talking before the break about the jostling and the mixing it up that's going on after the Greek elections. How much can they ask for? Can they ask for an extension? Harold Howe, you made the point about how sooner or later default will come. Julia Cagé, you strongly disagreed on that point, saying if there's a political will, it can be settled. The pressure on Greece...
we at least agree that the current debt level is unsustainable for Greece. There's no question about this.
That's for sure.
Yeah, okay, so
but
that
we
means
can do something against it.
We're going to have a major write-down of the existing debt. And part of it is due to the fact that there is
unsustainable interest rate.
Yeah, so it's unsustainable. So there's going to be a cut, and this means that European taxpayers are majorly engaged.
You know that you don't need to have a cut. You know that we can do Eurobonds and these kind of things. You know that the European Central Bank can...
Before we get to Eurobonds, let me ask François Picard, do you have the sense, hearing the way this discussion is going in our studio in Paris, that the pressure may be switching a little bit this Monday from Athens to Berlin?
I don't know. We've got our own enough of our own problems over here to be second-guessing what Angela Merkel and Berlin are going to be doing. Perhaps, as I said before, it's becoming a little bit more isolated. But these are factors that we cannot control. You know, we have to get a government in place, and it's no more complicated than that, because, as you know, what was being said earlier is absolutely true. Between these elections, the 6 weeks between elections, this country, it became dangerously close to hitting rock bottom.
Is there a lot of resentment against? Is there a lot of resentment against Germans? Will they be welcome as tourists this summer?
No.
Of course, they'll be welcomed as tourists. It's not like that. There are isolated cases. You can hear reports on them. Of course, you can. This has got to go a fair while further to play out and to see exactly what we're playing Germany in the Euro 2012 in a few days' time. You'll see a massive reaction there, but let's not take it too far.
All right, anti-German sentiment certainly on the rise among certain pundits, and by the way, not just in Greece or even inside the Eurozone. We can show you a cartoon courtesy of the opinions page of UK tabloid The Independent this Monday. There you see Angela Merkel getting strangled by Venus de Milo there, as she's got a little hacksaw in her hand. Harold, how do the Germans feel about all of this? Barack Obama has been sending dog whistle messages to the German Chancellor as well.
I don't think that Germany is isolated in this. I think that's a wrong characterization. That the Finns, the Dutch, the Austrians, Luxembourg, a lot of northern states are actually entirely on the German side. They're not singled out. But the question is how France will jump. I think that will...
This is precisely it. Are on the German side. Who's on the European side here? You have just nailed this point down, boiled it down to what it is. There is no European state. So why is there a currency? There has to be an elemental defenestration of what Europe is right now. If anything positive is going to come out of this, if this euro currency is going to exist under whatever kind of interest rates you'd like or interest rates you'd like to see, there has to be an elemental change. And the only place right now, as ugly as it might be, where you're seeing some sort of elemental change taking place, as distasteful as many people might find it, is in Greece. With Syriza. No. I agree. I believe that it is. I believe that it is. It's not about Germany. It's not about Finland.
I am really pro Tsipras, but at the end of the day, he's not in the government. He's not doing anything. He could have done good things if it had been elected, but we can say that the future of Europe in in the end of the opposition. You know, we have to act right now, and we don't need to wait for like 6 more months in order to have a new government in Greece in order to see whether or not he will do better. I wanted him to be elected. You know, I am not against him. I am pro him, but he's not the future of Europe, and he's not the one that is going to solve the situation. But I really do agree with you. Like, there is no front or war against Germany. You know, there is no pro-German, anti-German. There is not an anti-German like feeling in France or anywhere else. And I think
actually, the public, if you talk to the taxi driver here, I did when coming here, the sentiment in France is very much like the sentiment in Germany.
No, there is we don't have to talk, like, what do you mean by sentiment? You know, there is
people resenting,
there is a lot of
having to take a big hit on their...
There is a lot of different things. There is the problem of Greece, there is the problem of Eurobonds, and there is the important point where France will have all the things to do now, and now we will see whether or not Hollande, who has the entire powers in France, is able to do some things. It's about federalism. And when we say that Germany don't want to go as far as France to solve the Greek or the Spanish or the Italian crisis, it's not really true. Because there is a lot of voice in Germany, included between like Merkel friends, that are trying to argue towards more federalisms, and they're ready to make some sharing of debts and these kind of things if we allow them to have a look over European countries' budget. And this is right now where France has some things to say, because France has to propose something and France has to accept more federalism.
And now that the campaigns are over, because it was the presidential election and there were 2 rounds of legislative elections, French have now finished voting. What's the real François Hollande going to say?
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to know that. I think right now he can do what he has to do, and he can do more Europe. He was very pushy during the last 2 weeks toward more Eurobonds, so I think this is a good first step. But he never
is he going to ease off
anything as to federalism, and this is the important point, because he really know that in the battle against Germany, the thing that can make Germany change their minds as to Eurobonds is more federalisms. And in fact, at the end of the day, we don't really know with François Hollande what he's thinking about it and what he will be able to do. I hope, since he's entirely free, you know, like for example, with the Front Gauche necessary to have the majority in the French National Assembly, it would have been different because the Front Gauche is not very pro-Europe. But right now, he's alone with the full majority, so he can do what the other did not do before him, because there was this election, this kind of thing. So you can take risks.
Yeah, Eurobonds are a nice idea. I don't know who's going to buy them. I don't see anyone in the market
like buying China them. Will buy them, like they buy U.S. bonds. Japan will buy them, like they buy U.S. bonds.
I wonder. I don't think that's a certainty. I do not believe that's a certainty. Collectively, when politicians sit down and they look at what they're buying into, you're looking at they're looking at a Europe right now that is collectively in debt for 11 trillion euros.
This is lower than the debt rate
I
of the United States.
I completely agree with your point. There's no gain from the Eurobond. It's a zero-sum game that has no...
May I put...
On the other hand,
what is the debt over GDP ratio in the United States? It's much higher. In Japan, it's much higher. In the UK, it's much higher.
We're not talking about Japan. We're talking about a non-federated Europe. In which the 27 EU governments, according to Eurostat, owe 11 trillion euros.
Harold Howe, there's the concept that's being bandied about, and I only discovered it today because I'm not an economist, but apparently we're going to hear a lot about it over the next 10 days. It's this idea of project bonds. In other words, Eurobonds, but only for big capital works projects. What do you think?
It's Merkel's way to deflect the issue of Eurobonds and to evade it, basically.
But would those work?
Well, I mean, there will be of a magnitude that it's irrelevant, basically. Huh? And any grand scheme that is now thought out in Brussels that is any big-scale mutualization has a zero chance of running. What could work is, but that's also very unlikely to happen, is if France and Italy came out with strong commitments to debt ceilings and giving up sovereignty and so on. But on the political side, there's very little chance that this will succeed. So
giving up sovereignty, that's an important point. Julia Cagé, obviously more federalism would mean that the guys in Brussels, the guys in Berlin get to come to Paris and look at the books at the finance ministry.
The guy in Brussels, yes, not the guy in Germany, you know. One guy from Berlin, one guy from Paris, one guy from Roma, another one from Madrid. Huh? It won't be only Germans.
But will Paris go along with that?
I hope so, but I am not sure. Because this will be I am not François Hollande, you know, I can take...
There's no way
I can guess.
that
my best guess
is going to give
is
up
that
its sovereignty.
They can do it. Like in Germany, they're ready to do it. Typically,
actually,
German guys,
I agree.
They're
it's
ready
much
to do it, and this is their proposal. And I think in France, we have to do this big step. And this is not easy for an elected president. You know, you are.
All right, there's an outsider in this conversation, Thrazi Petropoulos. When you hear us talking about whether or not it's all right to have others come in and look over your books, tell us what it feels like.
Well, it's something that we're going through. We're going to have to get used to, I think. You know, I've spoken to a lot of people here who say, you know what, I'm paying my taxes, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I don't have a problem if someone wants to come in and look over my shoulder. There are an awful lot of people in that situation. I'm not saying that everyone's paying their taxes here. Of course, we have a huge problem with tax evasion. But as far as Europe setting the agenda, the economic agenda, this is something which, you know, Greece ceded economic sovereignty to the EU the moment it signed the first bailout. And we've gone to the second bailout, and with the PSI and the rest of it, it's just a fact of life. Troika, you know, we're waiting. You asked me earlier about, you know, how Greece is looking at Europe and thinking maybe if it's changed or not. At the moment, we're waiting for 1 billion euros of a 5 billion euro tranche from the second bailout, the first installment of the second bailout. We're still waiting for that last installment because it's been withheld pending the formation of another government. The troubles here are so immediate that we don't have the luxury of worrying about who's looking at our books anymore.
Too true.
And while Greece, whose economy weighs, as Julia was saying, 2% of the whole Eurozone, has the entire planet in turmoil and watching what it does, the World Bank's president last Friday told France 24's Marcus Carlson he sees even bigger problems.
I think the most important issue actually is the one about trying to help the Spanish and Italian governments be able to undertake their reforms. The reforms they're taking are going to take some time, and so they need some medium-term financing that is matched with the length of the reforms, and that's the piece that I think Europe hasn't yet solved yet.
We're so focused on the short-term financing, meeting the next deadline, that we're not looking at that medium term.
Right. I think compared to Spain, Greece is a sideshow. It's absolutely vital to stabilize the system in Spain, the banking system. The big mistake of the Spanish government has been to procrastinate about this, where they have consolidated a lot of banks but not really injected money. The Bank of Spain has systematically deceived its European partners about the scale of the problem. There were lots of conflicts, and I think also the way in which the banking restructuring is undertaken at Spain has to change. We need the IMF involved, we need the European Banking Authority involved. We have to take as much as possible out of the hands of the Bank of Spain, which should do assistance. We need a very vigorous restructuring of the Spanish banking sector with a lot of injection of new capital and a wipeout of existing shareholders, bail-in of senior creditors, and conversion of junior debt. Conversion of junior debt to equity. All of this is needed in order to make the resolution of this crisis sustainable for the Spanish government.
Why do you want the IMF involved into it?
Because they bring some external credibility.
We don't need the IMF to solve it.
I think it would be very, very helpful to have both the IMF and the European Banking Authority.
We need the European Banking Authority. And I think a good step, and this is also a step toward more federalism, will be to have a banking union. Because the problem of banks today in Europe is they are too big compared to the size of the European countries. So this is kind of hard for, like, it would be hard for
The
Spain
banks don't want
to bail out their own banks. But if you have a banking union, this will be possible. But Europe can do it from herself, and it really don't need to have the IMF involved.
The problem is the banking authorities are typically captured by the banks and by the local interests. That's why
But in this kind, you need to
Spain
change the head of the banking authority. You don't need the IMF to enter into it.
And this all goes into how you give the banking authority a bit of muscle, goes into that discussion that has to take place very fast. Those Greek elections, the kickoff to a slew of rendezvous that culminate, again, with that EU summit in 10 days' time. We can show you the agenda. It starts with the summit that's underway right now in Mexico. There's a European finance ministers meetings that take place the 21st and 22nd. Then, 22nd of June, this Friday, Angela Merkel meets the leaders of Italy, France, and Spain in Rome before that EU summit next week. A whirlwind of dates on the calendar. And looking ahead at that calendar in the Financial Times this Monday, Wolfgang Monschau, in a column entitled "What Happens If Angela Merkel Does Get Her Way?" he writes, "What if there is no deal or another fudge? In that case, I would expect Italy and Spain to leave the Eurozone. In the absence of a deal next week, I would expect to see an acceleration of a slow-motion bank run." Do you agree with that prediction, Harold Howe?
I think it could well come to the situation where we have to take a tough decision who's in and out. That might well come, and the question is Spain in or out? Is Italy in or out?
But without Spain, Italy and Greece, there is no more sense to have Europe.
But do you think it's all going to come to a head?
It's going to be a smaller Eurozone.
But will it come to a head in 10 days' time?
Well, I think
München
might well be on
Germany,
the spot here that we might get a smaller Eurozone with fewer members. That's in the cards, I think.
All right, and before we go, there's one more important thing that's perhaps even more important than Europe's economy. Earlier, Thrazi Petropoulos touched on it. Fate has it that Germany plays Greece in the quarterfinals of Euro 2012, and we can show you the latest odds. Thrazi, they don't look good. According to Paddy Power, 9-1 the Greeks to beat Germany. Can those odds be reversed?
It's inevitable. I think it's going to have to happen. It's written in the stars.
Absolutely. Greece is going to win it.
Yeah, I hope so.
There's no question about that,
All right, Harold Howe, final word on this.
We have a party, so even Greeks are invited to the party.
Just remember something. You may have invented the banking system, but we Greeks, we invented prophecy. Greece is going to win.
Okay.
We'll see.
And on that prophecy, we shall leave it. Thank you, Craig Kopitas, Julia Cagé, Harold Howe, and Thrazi Petropoulos for joining us from Athens. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate. Stay with us. Matthew Warren is next. He'll have all the day's business news, including the latest row out of Mexico, yes, at that G20 summit.